Ever been the victim of blackmail? It happens a lot more frequently than you might realize. And we're not referring to the standard sort of blackmail where a victim threatens to release sensitive or damaging information unless they are given money or power. Instead, we're talking about the emotional type of blackmail. Although it can happen to anyone in any type of relationship, emotional blackmail is typically in the form of manipulation that takes place in romantic relationships. You might not even be aware that you're being emotionally blackmailed because of how subtle this manipulation method is. Well, in today's video, we're going to be listing out the list of stages of how emotional blackmail can be done. Stage 1. Demand. At this point, the blackmailer wants something from you, but instead of simply politely asking, they typically issue a demand. For example, they might ask you to stop communicating with a friend or a group of friends, and you don't want to just oblige because you know people are your friends. Stage 2. Resistance. You know, you can't just consent to that straightforward request. Perhaps you fail to inform a blackmailer that you are out with friends. You confess to a blackmailer that you've been working late or that you're texting another person. Compared to outright rejecting them, this is more comfortable for you, but it only makes the process go on. Stage 3. Pressure. Once the blackmailer realizes what you're up to, they'll probably move on to this phase, which is when the fog of responsibility, guilt, and dread enters the picture. In addition to serving as a suitable acronym, the term fog also serves as a metaphor for how people experience this phase. They are frequently misled by pressure and deception as if they were lost in the woods with no visibility. So this is an illustration of how pressure sounds. If the blackmailer uses words like, if you keep hanging out with your buddies, you're never going to accomplish whatever you want to do, you could be hesitant to challenge them. They will claim that you owe them something. If you cared about me, you would think about spending more time with me rather than your buddies. Thus, as a couple, we should be making decisions about who we hang out with. It doesn't really feel nice internally at this point. Even though the blackmailer is relatively significant in your life and it's making it difficult to continue hanging out with your pals without creating conflict, you don't want to quit doing so. Stage 4. Threats. You run the risk of the blackmailer progressing to this step if you keep rejecting their requests. These threats may be positive or negative, direct or indirect, but they are still attempting to prevent you from going out with your pals. A blackmailer can threaten to have your pals leave you if you talk to them any longer. They'll make suggestions that, while you're out with your pals, the blackmailer might hurt themselves, swindle you, or even wreck the house, possibly on a good note. They'll merely claim that they can make your experience far superior to the one that you would have if you went out with your buddies. Under the law, this might be considered a threat, but this is still just a ploy for them to control you and get what they want. This is a crucial moment right now. Do you heed these warnings, or do you change the result? Many people accede to these threats in the hopes that they will only happen once. Stage 5. Compliance. If you ultimately cave in, then you've reached this stage. This phase may not occur right away, even though the blackmailer may have spent a lot of time making you feel guilty, afraid, and obligated. After you've obeyed, they will probably consider this a success. Stage 6. Repetition. The blackmailer will use this method once more if they discover it to be effective. They might not do it right away, and they might not even do it in the same way at all. But if they make another demand that you refuse, the procedure will restart. If you're blackmailed a second, third, or fourth time, you might not even be aware of what's going on. You can be so exhausted that you don't even feel like resisting. You've got to set limits if you want to reclaim your freedom and establish a good relationship. If the person continues to act in this manner, perhaps just talking will suffice. Ultimately, narcissism drives a large portion of blackmailers' conduct. They don't care about how you feel, and they want to keep acting in this way. They might even make violent threats and inflict harm on themselves, or if you refuse to cooperate or engage in other forms of havoc. If this is the case, it's crucial to get assistance and speak with a friend or therapist.